Okay, so if you're anything like me, you're checking your stocks today and thinking, what in the world is going on with this company, DeepSeek? I mean, everyone's talking about him and the market's going haywire.
Yeah, it's been quite the day on Wall Street.
So we're diving into this Al Jazeera article that breaks down DeepSeek's kind of sudden appearance and all the chaos that followed.
And by the end of this deep dive, you'll understand exactly why DeepSeek is making such big waves and what their potential impact could be.
Exactly. So let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
This DeepSeek thing, it's a Chinese company, right? And they're really challenging I don't know, it feels like the dominance of US tech giants in artificial intelligence or AI.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Their emergence is really shaking things up.
It feels like they're not just dipping their toes in the water, they've just cannonballed right into the pool.
That's a great analogy. They've announced this large language model, or LLM, called R1, and they're claiming that it can compete with the models we see from companies like Google and Microsoft.
But here's the kicker, at a fraction of the cost.
Right. And to understand why this is such a big deal, we need to back up a little bit and explain what these LLMs actually are.
Yeah, for those who are like, wait, what is an LLM?
Exactly. So essentially, they're really complex algorithms that are trained on massive amounts of data. We're talking text and code. And this training allows them to generate human quality text. They can translate languages, write different kinds of creative content, and even answer your questions in an informative way.
So it's like giving a computer this crash course in, well, human language and even creativity.
Exactly.
Wow. So DeepSeek is saying, hey, our R1 can do all of that, but for way less money. I mean, no wonder investors are a little bit freaked out.
Well, yeah, and on top of that, their app is already at the top of the charts on Apple's App Store.
Which is wild when you consider that the US government has all these restrictions on Chinese companies getting the top-tier computer chips, the ones that you need for AI.
It's one of the biggest questions surrounding DeepSeek right now. How did they manage to do this without access to the most advanced hardware?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Analyst Dan Ives, he's skeptical. And a lot of people are wondering if they're exaggerating what they can actually do.
Well, one thing is certain, the market's taking them pretty seriously. The S&P 500, it had its worst day in over a month, dropped 1.7%.
And big tech, those companies making these specialized AI chips, they took a real hit. Nvidia in particular, their stock plummeted 14.4%.
Ooh, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, and this really highlights this thing called concentration risk. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket. The market had become so reliant on a few tech giants, sometimes called the Magnificent Seven, to drive growth that any kind of disruption to their dominance is going to have a huge ripple effect.
Especially because last year, these Magnificent Seven accounted for over half of the S&P 500's total return. Crazy.
Yeah, it is.
So essentially, DeepSeek is this like unexpected storm, and everyone who was overexposed to US tech is getting drenched.
That's a great way to put it.
But you mentioned that stocks outside of AI, they seem to be holding up okay.
Yeah, the Dow Jones, for example, it dipped a tiny bit, which tells us that the impact right now is really concentrated within AI.
Almost like a very targeted earthquake in one neighborhood, but the rest of the city just feels a little tremor.
Exactly.
Okay, so DeepSeek is definitely disrupting things, sending shock waves through the market. And this article mentions Mark Andreessen. He's a venture capitalist. He compared DeepSeek's R1 to Sputnik. I mean, that's a pretty big comparison.
Yeah, it is, but it highlights the scale of what DeepSeek might have accomplished. Because remember, Sputnik, it was the first artificial satellite that went into orbit around the Earth.
Right, back in the, what was it, the 50s?
Yeah, the 50s. And Sputnik really changed the space race because it showed that the Soviets had capabilities that the U.S. hadn't even fully understood, and it led to a ton of investment and innovation in the U.S. to catch up.
So what he's saying is DeepSeek's R1, it could be AI's Sputnik moment, and that could potentially shift the balance of power in technology.
And that could spark a new race to innovate.
Wow, so the question is this a good comparison or is it just hype?
That's the million-dollar question.
I mean, how do you even start to compete with companies like Google and Microsoft that have spent years and billions of dollars on AI? It feels like this DeepSeek story just came out of nowhere.
It's true. It does seem sudden, but that's often how these technological breakthroughs happen, right? They come out of nowhere and change everything we thought we knew.
I guess so. So what should we be paying attention to so we can figure out if DeepSeek is the real deal or just a flash in the pan?
Well, first, we need more than just these really bold claims. We need evidence that their R1 model can do what they're promising.
So early success on an app store is nice and all, but it doesn't really tell the whole story.
Exactly.
So we need to dig deeper into the technical capabilities of R1.
Yeah, we need to see how it stacks up against the industry benchmarks. Can it actually handle the massive amounts of data and all the processing power that's needed for complex AI tasks?
Got it. And we also need to look beyond the tech itself, right?
Right? Can DeepSeek attract and keep the top people in this field? Can they get the funding they need to keep innovating? Because it is such a competitive field.
Those are all really good points, and I think it's important to think about this. I mean, this isn't just about companies and stock prices, this DeepSeek thing.
No, it's not.
It's about national pride, it's about global competition. And this Al Jazeera article, it mentions that even Dutch and Japanese companies are feeling this.
That's right, they are.
Dutch chip supplier, what was it, ASML, saw its stock drop over 6%. And SoftBank Group, a big Japanese tech investor, they lost 8%.
It's a global story.
So DeepSeek is really, I don't know, it's like the ground is shifting beneath our feet and everyone's trying to figure out where to stand.
I like that. And it's happening so fast, which is why it's so important for us to keep learning about this and engaging in this conversation.
Okay, so back to the main question. If DeepSeek can compete with these AI giants, what does that mean for technology? What does it mean for the global balance of power?
Those are huge questions. And to answer them, we're going to have to explore a lot of the potential implications of what DeepSeek is doing.
All right, so let's do that. Let's unpack it. Let's talk about the impact on innovation, the economy, and even geopolitics.
Sounds good. Let's dive in.
Because this DeepSeek thing, it's about way more than just some new AI company.
It really is.
So let's start with innovation. What could DeepSeek entering the AI arena mean for how fast things develop and the kinds of breakthroughs we see in the next few years?
Well, one possibility is that it could really speed up AI advancements. Increased competition usually pushes everybody to work harder and smarter and come up with new ideas.
Right.
And DeepSeek saying they can offer similar capabilities at a much lower cost that could force these big companies to innovate more quickly or risk being left behind.
So that could actually be good for people like us, like consumers.
It could.
If we end up getting better AI products and services that are also cheaper.
Exactly. But it's not just about the price. This kind of shakeup could lead to brand new ways to use AI that we haven't even imagined yet.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, think about what could happen if AI is suddenly much more accessible to smaller companies and startups, even just individual researchers around the world.
It's like DeepSeek is opening the door to a whole new era of AI.
Yeah, where innovation isn't limited to just a select few.
That's a really cool way to look at it.
And this brings us to the economic implications. If DeepSeek can actually do what they're saying they can do, it could have a huge impact on industries way beyond just tech.
Like, what are we talking about here? What kind of impact? Can you give some examples?
Sure, think about manufacturing. AI robots and automation systems are already changing factories. But if those systems become cheaper, it could speed up that change dramatically,
I see.
leading to more efficiency and maybe even bringing some manufacturing jobs back to countries where labor is too expensive right now.
But wouldn't that also mean job losses in other areas?
It's definitely possible, like with any big technological change. AI is going to create winners and losers, and some jobs are definitely going to be automated away.
Right.
But new jobs will also be created in things like AI development and implementation and maintenance, so there will be new opportunities.
So it's less about jobs being created or destroyed and more about what kinds of skills people need.
You got it. And that's why it's so important to think about our education systems. How do we prepare people for this new economy that's going to be driven by AI?
We need to make sure people have the skills to succeed in this new world.
Absolutely.
Okay, so DeepSeek could be a catalyst for this huge reshaping of the global economy, not just about who the big companies are, but how we actually live and work.
It's definitely on the table, and it's something that people in government and business leaders need to be thinking about carefully.
So we've talked about innovation and economics. Now let's get into geopolitics. How could DeepSeek's success impact the relationship between the U.S. and China? Because things already seem pretty tense, especially when it comes to tech.
Yeah, this definitely adds another layer of complexity to an already delicate situation.
Right.
The U.S. has been trying to hold on to its advantage in technology by limiting China's access to those advanced AI chips.
Right.
But DeepSeek's success, despite those restrictions, suggests that those efforts might not be working as well as they hoped.
So it's kind of a wake-up call for the U.S.,
It could be seen that way.
showing that China's a real player in AI no matter what obstacles are in their way.
Yeah, and it could even lead to a more intense competition between the two countries for AI dominance.
which could have effects on everything. Military power, global economic influence.
Absolute.
It's almost like, I don't know, like we're watching the beginning of a new kind of Cold War.
Interesting comparison.
This time it's not about tanks and missiles, but algorithms and data.
I like that analogy, and it really highlights how important this is, because the future of AI isn't just about which country has the coolest gadgets. It's about shaping global power and the values that this tech is based on.
So it's not just DeepSeek versus Google or even China versus the US.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about the future of humanity and how we're going to use AI to shape that future.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to be having these discussions, to think about the ethical and societal implications of AI.
To make sure this technology is developed and used responsibly.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot, from market jitters to global tensions. DeepSeek's arrival has definitely shaken things up, but what does this mean for everyday people who are just trying to understand what's happening in this rapidly changing world?
Well, it really shows that we're in a time of constant technological advancement, and these advancements are going to affect our lives in a big way.
Right.
Whether we like it or not, AI is here to stay, and it's going to change how we work, how we learn, how we communicate, how we think.
So DeepSeek isn't just some abstract tech news story. It's something that will actually affect all of us.
In very real ways, yeah, and it's important to be aware of those potential impacts, both the good and the bad.
We need to be informed and participate in these discussions about how we want AI to shape our world.
You got it.
Okay, so what can people actually do to stay informed and engaged with this AI revolution that seems to be happening all around us?
Well, first, don't be afraid to ask questions. AI can feel complicated and intimidating, but there are tons of resources out there to help you learn the basics and understand what's at stake.
So do some research, read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, talk to people who know about AI.
Exactly, and don't just sit back and take in information. Think critically about it. Think about what different AI developments could mean for the world. Talk to your family and friends about this stuff.
Right.
The more we talk about and debate the future of AI, the better we'll be able to deal with this complex and rapidly changing landscape.
And it's not just about understanding how the technology works. It's about understanding the values that are built into it.
That's right.
Who is making this AI? What are their motivations? And how can we make sure it's used for good and not for bad?
Those are the questions we need to be asking. And that brings us to the heart of the issue. The future of AI isn't set in stone. We as a society can help shape it.
But in order to shape it, we need to be informed, engaged, and willing to have those tough conversations about what kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly, and that's what this deep dive is all about, giving you the information you need to be part of this important conversation.
Okay, so we've talked about how DeepSeek's rise could affect innovation, the economy, geopolitics, even our individual lives. But there's one more layer to this story, the money side of things.
Right.
What does this all mean for investors who are trying to figure out this crazy market?
That's a great question, and one a lot of people have right now. And to be honest, there's no easy answer. Investing in AI has risks, especially in a market that's being disrupted by a new company like DeepSeek.
So what advice would you give to someone who wants to invest in AI?
The first thing is, don't panic. The market always overreacts to news. Good or bad, take a breath and try to assess the situation with a clear head.
So no rash decisions based on fear or FOMO, fear of missing out.
Exactly. Do your research, understand the companies you're investing in, and be prepared for some ups and downs.
Because the AI market is still new and there are going to be some bumps in the road.
There will be. Diversification is also key. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread your investments across different companies and different industries.
So don't just go all in on AI.
Right, exactly. And remember, investing is a marathon, not a sprint. You're not going to get rich quickly.
So be patient.
Yeah, focus on the long-term potential of the companies you believe in.
And don't invest money you can't afford to lose.
Absolutely. That's the golden rule.
Okay, so we talked about the potential risks and rewards of investing in AI, but there's something else to consider too, the ethical side of things.
Right.
As investors, we have to think about the impact our investments have on the world as a whole.
That's a really important point. We can't just chase profits without thinking about the consequences. Are we supporting companies that are doing AI the right way? Are we helping to create a future where AI helps humanity and doesn't hurt it?
Those are tough questions.
They are, but They're questions we need to ask ourselves.
It's about more than just making money.
It is.
It's about thinking about our values and what we want to support with our investments.
Exactly. And being willing to talk to the companies we invest in, to hold them accountable, and make sure they're doing things in a way that matches our own ethics.
So investing in AI isn't just about picking the right stocks.
No, it's not.
It's about making choices that match our values and help make a better world.
Exactly. And recognizing that we all have a role to play in shaping how AI develops.
You know, it's pretty amazing how one company's new tech can cause such a big reaction all over the world.
It really does show how connected everything is.
Like, we've gone from the market freaking out to talking about a new Cold War and the future of humanity, and it all started with DeepSeek.
Yet technological advancements aren't isolated events anymore. Something happens on one side of the world, and it can reshape the whole global landscape pretty quickly.
DeepSeek's rise, it's both exciting and a little scary, you know?
Aggregate.
Exciting because it opens up all these possibilities and challenges what we thought we knew, and it could even make things progress faster.
Right.
But it's also kind of scary because it makes us question a lot of what we thought we knew about the tech world.
It's that uncertainty that often drives both innovation and fear.
I see what you mean.
Think back to the dot-com bubble.
Mm.
Tons of growth and speculation, and then it all came crashing down. And we're seeing some of that with AI now.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's a lot of hype, a lot of money going into it, and nobody's really sure which companies are going to come out on top.
So how do we, as regular people, deal with all of this? It's easy to get overwhelmed with all the news and how complicated AI seems.
I think the most important thing is to try to understand the basics of how the technology works. Don't get lost in the jargon or the crazy headlines. Focus on the core concepts, what AI can do, how it works, and what it can't do.
Don't get caught up in all the little details.
Right? And maybe step back from the daily ups and downs of the market and look at the bigger picture. What are the long-term trends? What problems is this technology trying to fix? And how could it change our lives in the next few years?
Those are some really good questions.
Remember, it's okay to be skeptical. Don't just believe everything you read. Question things, challenge the claims people are making, and look for different points of view.
That's good advice for anything, really, not just AI.
It is.
And we have to remember that technology isn't neutral. It reflects the values and biases of the people who create it.
You're right.
So we need to be aware of who's developing AI, what their goals are, and how we can make sure it's used ethically and for the right reasons.
Absolutely. That's where the human part comes in. We can't just leave the future of AI in the hands of engineers and companies.
Right. We need to have honest discussions about what kind of world we want to build with this technology.
And that brings us back to the beginning. You wanted to understand DeepSeek's impact and what it means for you. So we talked about the market going crazy, looked at DeepSeek's claims, talked about a new AI race, and even got into some ethical and philosophical stuff.
We went deep.
We connected the dots between what seemed like this isolated event, DeepSeek's announcement, and how it's affecting the global economy, geopolitics, and even our own lives.
DeepSeek is just one part of the bigger story of AI's growth.
But it's a part that has a lot of lessons and insights and questions that will keep shaping how we think about technology and its role in the world.
Absolutely. So the next time you see some news about AI, remember this deep dive. Remember to be skeptical, think critically, and talk to people about the future we want to create.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it useful, thought-provoking, and maybe even a little inspiring.
We'll see you next time.
Until then, stay curious, keep learning, and keep exploring.